Welcome to the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival. My name is Mike Wendt. I am the production coordinator for the Greater Cleveland Film Commission. I want to thank the film festival for asking me to host this local filmmakers panel, and I'm very happy to have with us today. We have Mike Suglio, who directed Lou's Secret, and we have Cheatham Slankard, who directed Pretty Vacant. Welcome to the both of you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. No,
yeah, glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and congratulations that both of your films are playing a part of the festival this year. I guess I'm just going to have to throw out this softball first, but if you had to tell us a little bit about your films, each of you, I guess you can flip a coin who wants to go first. But tell us a little bit about your films.
So I produced and directed this short documentary called Pretty Vacant. It's about a site-specific art project in Slavic Village, an old neighborhood in Cleveland. So it basically portrays this event called Rooms to Let. It's an art event that I attended several years in a row. And I was always fascinated by the transformation and the idea of reinvention that this event is pinned on. So it's really, if the event is about reinvention and, making something out of nothing, it is also, that art event sort of becomes a metaphor for this neighborhood and the story of that neighborhood. So that's what the film is about.
Excellent. And Mike, how about yourself?
Sure, I directed and produced as well. Lou's Secret. It explores this hidden speakeasy in Cleveland's Little Italy. And they've been around, they were a bar prior to Prohibition, and then they were still magically a bar afterwards as well. So it explores, how they, had this speakeasy, and we uncovered where it is, and, it's apartments have been built over it, and we explore a little bit more about, the greater effects and the greater, story behind the Prohibition, how it affected Cleveland and the immigrant population.
Now, as documentary filmmakers, I think one of always the biggest hurdle is how do you pick the subjects that you choose to do, because it's always something that it's never just something that you pick and it's something that you film and then in 3 months it's out. It's something that sometimes with a documentary, it could be, quite a while. Cheatham, how did you stumble across this art installation in Slavic Village?
Well, as I mentioned, it's an event that I attended several times, and every time I went, I had this experience I had this sort of urge to share my experience with others. And I have that urge about many things, really, I like to share. But the thing is, if that urge sort of stays, if you keep having that time after time again, if you're still thinking about the same thing, you know what I mean? If the idea doesn't go away, then it becomes something that I probably should make. There's also, that's one. And also I've worked on other projects that explore similar topics about urban design, urban transformation, and stories of displaced people. So these are things that I'm drawn to in general in the work that I do. So it was a bit of a kind of a perfect situation, fine arts and those themes that I mentioned. And it's something that I cared about, that I think there was a story to capture and relate to an audience. I think that's what made me pursue it.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found most fascinating in, having gone around and scouted certain areas in Slavic Village, I mean, I didn't realize how many foreclosures there were in that area. I mean, it was pretty eye-opening. I mean, when you sought out to start this, I mean, was that something already on your radar, or was that just kind of like a statistic that you learned over the course of the filmmaking?
I certainly learned more in depth about Slavic Village and the crisis that has afflicted it as I was making the film, because the people that I spoke to, of course, were a lot more knowledgeable about about it than I was. But it is something that I knew about. Slavic Village, this little neighborhood in Cleveland, was on the front page of New York Times years ago as the epicenter of the foreclosure crisis. So I was familiar with that. But like I said, like I had worked on other projects about urban design issues and transformation of cities. So it's a topic that I know a few things about. It's not my area of expertise. I don't have a PhD in urban issues, or urban studies. But I definitely learned more about it. But again, if the response is like, oh, I didn't know there were so many foreclosures in Slavic Village, I think that's part of the film's mission, perhaps, is to go to Slavic Village. There are good businesses. The art event, Our Rooms to Let, is definitely a magnet for the general public to go. Perhaps that's something that the film can accomplish and draw the rest of the public to this neighborhood, which is like right there, in Cleveland, so easy to get to. So I think that's a good way to tie it, right? Like if our response is, oh, I didn't know that was happening, maybe that's a mission that the film can help accomplish, where maybe more people will go take their business there,
Absolutely. And Mike, I know, we're, I guess, full disclosure, we're friends, in the film industry as well. And, also I got to work with Cheatham before, but I know that, Little Italy holds a special place in your, in your heart, as somebody who lives over there. So how did you come across this?
Sure. So growing up, so my dad is born and raised in Bari, Italy. And, growing up, I knew like where I wanted to move once I left Mentor was Little Italy. And so I did it. And so I've lived there for quite some time. And John, who owns Lou's Tavern, he will occasionally actually open the bar in not necessarily the full speakeasy, but parts of it. And I've always I look around, I'm having a craft beer or something, and I'm just like, John, what's the story here? And he tells a little bit, and then over time I've learned so much about this place that I was like, we got to do something about it. And, as you guys will hopefully watch this film here, or you have, is you'll see that the speakeasy itself, we're the first camera crew, there in 30, 40 years. It was boarded up and we ripped the wall down to get in because it was just this secret that the families had forever, and this is their first time really telling anyone about it. So it's just it's one of those best kept secrets, kind of hence the title there.
That's amazing. I mean, you said that once in a while they'll open it up. Do they announce it to the public, or is it just something that it's amongst kind of those Little Italy staples, or people who have to know somebody who knows somebody to get into this, into the tavern?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually. Yeah, because it used to be open on a little bit more of a regular basis, and then it started getting almost like a speakeasy vibe, and so you have to check your Facebook and be like, oh, yep, it's open today. This is great. Let's go down there. And I mean, it really is up there in one of the oldest bars in Cleveland. The cash register that's featured in the film, that's well over 100 years old. And it's just nuts, unless you live in the community, you would never really know about it.
Yeah. Wow. So I guess we can throw this out to both of you. Now I know there might be a lot of younger filmmakers or just filmmakers in general who are watching this. And this question will always come up, especially with documentaries. How did you get this funded? Was it self-funded, or were there any exterior kind of grants or any producers out there that helped you fund it? So I guess we'll start with you, Cheatham.
Yeah, I got a grant through Cleveland State University as a faculty member. So that helped. Well, I got two grants actually. One of it was for me to, buy a few items of equipment that I used in making of the film. The other grant was actually more influential, I think, and that was really to be able to hire two students from the film school who helped edit this film, Carrie Fick and Tom Zawertnik. So that was, for me, it was the first time I had that opportunity, that specific grant. And I thought that was really great. And I think they had a good time working on it. So in fact, so the film is 20 minutes, but we shot so much more than, of course, we could fit in the film. So we wanted to help the artists, serve the artists who are part of the film. So there are all these like individual videos of artists that are edited. So my students edited all those segments, and many of those cuts that they made, the selects that they make, actually helped sort of get into the actual film. Not all of it, but some of it, of course. So that was, this project was specifically funded by Cleveland State University, two individual grants, one to pay the students, the other one was to, help me buy a few things.
Excellent. And Mike?
I just also want to add, Tom and Carrie are both fantastic students. Tom actually worked on my film as well. So he's great. This part of the Loose Secret is definitely funded by myself here. What we're actually, the goal was is to have this as a piece of a feature length documentary that we have probably about a third shot that we were supposed to finish last summer, but we know how that went. It basically explores Cleveland's history through the lens of the beer brewing process. And so when we were filming that segment of the documentary, another Cleveland State student who's also an excellent filmmaker, Brian Robinson, tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, Sugli, I think we should just make a short out of this too, And I was like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. And so that's how we ended up expanding this project itself out. But we're hoping for some grants or funding to finish this up. So if anyone has any suggestions, please message me or email me. I would unbelievably appreciate it.
Well, and as you both mentioned, we should also mention to the audience that you both work at Cleveland State's film school, can you just tell us a little bit about your involvement there, and also just the fact that you were able to help get some of these students actual experience by working on your films?
I think that it's an incredible privilege to work at a big institution like that. I think that, I should say Cleveland State is a great place to work, and it's also a great place to seek an education. I, for one, am the kind of person who thrives in a strong community. So I'm really grateful to have that there. That includes my students, that includes my colleagues, Mike included. And so for that, I think I'm very grateful. And of course, as the film school, we're this sort of new entity, and we're very, very grateful for this awesome facility and equipment that we have. So it's really great to have access to that stuff too. And in fact, Mike was joking the other day, like we edited the film in the same exact lab. And it's true.
Yeah, it was the same time too. It was like November, December. So
right. I think December 19th is my export date.
Oh, it might be actually, that's funny. I think it might be the same day, or like with plus or minus 2 days there.
And Mike, tell us a little bit about your experience from teaching at CSU.
It's great. And so, the faculty, the facilities, the faculty are great people to collaborate and work with. But, the students are just fantastic. They're just so passionate. And I feel so blessed that I get the opportunity to hang out with like 20, students who just like are interested in all the things I'm interested in. And I'm like, hey, here's how to do this thing, and then we, build professional relationship together. And then ultimately, Brian and Tom and Zach, students who I probably have also worked at, well, we know Tom worked on Chiam's film, and I know they've both worked with you. All three of those students have worked with you, and they're just, they just become ingrained and a part of this, film community that's so important to Cleveland. So it's great to see, it's also really rewarding to see them grow, So I mainly instruct like the freshmen, like first year classes, and so they've never used a camera before. And then, by the time they probably get to Chiam's class here, they're seniors, and now, you know, in many ways they know different areas better than I do. And it's just so awesome to get to experience that.
Can I add something to that? When I first got my got a teaching position at a college, I emailed one of my professors from my undergrad, my favorite professor ever. And I shared the news, and he said, of course, congratulated me. And then he said, you'll realize that you will learn from your students as much as they learn from you. And that really is true. Our students help us grow in many ways. And that's why I like to use the word community. Like Mike mentioned, it becomes this community of makers and creatives who come together, sometimes problem solve together, and work towards the same goal. And that really is a great privilege to be a part of.
That's great. I mean, and I guess going along with that, there is kind of a community amongst us documentarians. I mean, most people, I think, when they go to a Cleveland State or a Tri-C or something, they're looking to be more of a commercial filmmaker. I guess what kind of gave you, and for both of you, the documentary bug?
Oh, Mike, you want to go first, or I feel like I'm always answering first.
It's okay. So I mean, I most of my life I did acting, and really it was in college. I wanted to just explore different things. That's what you do in college. And I realized like Cleveland and Ohio have so many like untold stories. Like we see documentaries from the East and West Coast cities, but like there's a lot to explore and talk about in Cleveland. And Clevelanders are just so interesting. They're just, we have such good hearts. We're so passionate about things. And so I just wanted to just, explore people like John Sparent at Lou's Tavern. Like, what's your deal, man? Like, tell me about your family's history that's been, your family's been here for 100 years with the Speakeasy. What's your story? And there's such a wealth of stories, and there's such a wealth of, structures and buildings and what have you. It's not only a great place to just simply film, but it's a great place to really get to know the people who reside in the city and in the state, and explore their stories.
I really relate to everything you said, Mike. And I would add, my work has these themes that recur, whether it's a documentary, narrative, or experimental. So I worked in other modes of filmmaking as well. So documentary is not the only kind of filmmaking we make, of course. So it's really about how you, what stories you're drawn to and how you want to tell them. So there's definitely that, but there's also this, and I will be frank when I say this. The very first documentary that I made that actually premiered at Chagrin, must have been like 6-7 years ago. I forgot the exact date. It was a documentary about bumper stickers. It's called The Great American Bumper Sticker. And I started making that film because that was the film that I could make at that time. I had a 1-year-old baby and I had a full-time job. And what film can I make? And that was a film that I wanted to make, that I could make. And I think that in my case, at least, there is some truth to that. The question of what can I make with the resources that are available to me and with the restrictions that I have that are on me. Perhaps it started with that restriction, but now for some reason, all the ideas that I come up with are documentary ideas. So kind of maybe that was the bug, and then that kind of transformed me into this, old documentary filmmaker. But I hope to make other things going forward as well. So I'm working on a VR project now, for instance, which is also VR documentary, I have to say.
Oh, wow.
But that's not to say that it's all documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced when making this film? I guess Mike, we'll start with you.
There's actually a decent amount of challenges with the short here, mainly because people were moving into the apartment where the speakeasy is. And so, like I said, it was like it got changed into an apartment, and it was just forgotten about for close to like 40, 50 years. And it was all boarded up, and John had told me years ago this existed, but like I could never see it because someone always lived there. And so he was just like, we got like a week before somebody moves out and somebody moves in. And he's like, now's the time to do this. And so we just, I rallied, Brian and then Andrew Thames, who's, one of the best cinematographers in the city. And I was just like, dude, we got to get this done, guys. And so we just rushed in and we filmed, all those exterior shots, all the pushes and pulls in the actual speakeasy. And then we came back when things are, a little bit more calmer, and we could create like a legit shooting schedule. And, then we hammered out like all the A-roll interviews with John. But like, it was nerve-wracking because like there's, it was almost like live TV, or, there's just, and I'm sure Chim can relate to this, is like, for documentaries, there's no do-overs at times. Like, you either going to get this or you're not. I'm sure, and Mike, you can definitely relate. Like, yeah. It all banks on this. And so we were like, we have to get the best footage of the speakeasy because it's being boarded up and forgotten for another 50 years.
Yeah.
And Cheatham, how about yourself?
Oh, challenges. I think for me, the most challenging aspect of making the film was like we shot so much, like we really had in mind to capture this event in its entirety. It's that process of selecting what parts make the story what it is. Because of course, like there's so many versions of it that we could have made, that we could have told. And I always find that challenging, like these oceans of possibilities. And the moment you make a decision, you have eliminated all the rest of the ocean except for this one drop of water. That's what you have. And I always find that very challenging. And this film, I was the main editor on it, which is unusual for me. I usually work with an editor. So I think I'm happy with the product that it became. I like the film. But there's so much more to it that I like that didn't really make it in. So it's always kind of hard to make peace with that,
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to spoil this for anybody who hasn't watched it yet, but one of my favorite, or probably of recent things, my favorite like closing credit sequence takes place in your film, Cheatham. Like,
thank you, Mike.
We don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched it, but how did that come about? Like, did you just happen to be at the right place at the right time, or were you given a heads up notice about it?
I was at the right place at the right time, but it took a lot of work to be at the right place at the right time.
Okay.
I made connections and bugged people incessantly. And so I was like, you need to let me know. If I don't get that, it's not going to be good. That's what I need. And you need to let me know, please. And literally that.
Yeah, and, it's really compelling.
That's so kind. Thank you. And I always tell my students this too, like no one wants to work with a jerk. Like you need to be comfortable asking for favors, and you need to be able to ask for them very politely. And ask again, and essentially, and that's really what it takes to do that kind of work, But of course, there's always luck involved and stuff, that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're about to wrap it up, but I would love to know if you guys, if both of you have something in the pipeline, what is the next project, and then also where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about your work? We'll start with you, Mike.
Sure. Well, we're going to try to do some more interviews for the feature on the, the again, it's a feature documentary on Cleveland's beer brewing history, and just catch up with some of these brewery owners and brewmasters who we interviewed and see, what they're doing now, how has their businesses been affected. And then over the summer, I'm hoping we can, hammer out the other 2/3. But I've been busy writing. Like I've written like one pilot, and I'm probably over this weekend going to hammer out another one. This is such a great time to just like sit down and just write, and I'm hoping eventually, these pilots or these short films, I'll make them eventually. But if anyone wants to connect with me, please, you can find me on Facebook and shoot me a message, if you're interested in both Loose Secret as well as the featured documentary as well.
Yeah, similarly, so I have 2 small projects in development right now. Well, one is in production, really, but we're in collaboration with CMSD and Great Lakes Science Center, and we started documenting this education, this program that they have, where every single student who's enrolled at a school at CMSD comes to Great Lakes Science Center and has this sort of educational experience of hands-on in cutting-edge technology like blockchain, Internet of Things, and robotics. So we started documenting this process, and COVID happened. So I have some of this film shot, but that's something that we will resolve one way or another. And so that's one project. The other one is it's a VR documentary project about, again, an urban revitalization and stories of residential urban neighborhoods, and a specific one in Cleveland. That is really raw. That's literally like very in the beginning of it. So we'll see how that progresses as well. And how to check out my work or get in touch, I have a website. It's myname.com. So not myname.com, cheathamslankert.com, which happens to be my name. And that is, of course, yeah, maybe this is shared, maybe, like I guess from the film, one could see the spelling of my name, which is a Turkish name. So it's kind of tricky. But yeah, go to cheathamslankert.com, check out recent work, news updates. And that's also a good way to get in touch with me.
Excellent. Well, Mike and Cheatham, thank you so much. Remember, Mike Suglio's film Loose Secret. Cheatham's is Pretty Vacant. You can check them out, chagrinfilmfest.org from October 6th to 11th. Be sure to support these filmmakers who are right here from Northeast Ohio. Thank you again, Chagrin Documentary Film Festival, for asking me, and I look forward to catching more films. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.